unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, students don't just study, they build, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu. Ferris State University. We build champions. Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/iHeart. Want to pull off the season's freshest trends? You just need the right shoes. That's where Designer Shoe Warehouse comes in. Loving wide leg jeans? Pair them with sleek, low-profile sneakers. Obsessed with the sheer trend? Try it with mesh flats. Feeling boho? Healthy sandals?
Come on, stop focusing on the bugs.
Find on-trend shoes from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at DSW.
Think advertising on TikTok isn't for your business? Think again.
We've generated over 100,000 leads, which has converted into over 40,000 sales for our pet insurance policies. My name is Trey Farrow. I am the CEO of Spot Pet Insurance. TikTok's Smart Plus AI-powered automation takes the guesswork out of targeting, bidding, and optimizing. If I can advertise on TikTok, you can too.
Drive more leads and scale your business today, only on TikTok. Head over to getstarted.tiktok.com/TikTok ads.
I'm trying to find quality brake service.
Go further than Big O.
How about oil changes?
Big O.
Or new wheels?
Big O.
Struts?
Yep, Big O.
Alignments?
We do those too.
Jobs?
Big O.
Inspections?
Big O is the place.
Fluid changes?
Yep,
Batteries?
yep.
Even filter changes?
See,
And the best tires on the road?
of course, Big O's got it. Get everything you need only at your locally owned Big O Tires. Welcome to the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. Now get ready for Strange Things with Joshua B. Moore.
Welcome to our podcast. Please hear your thoughts and opinions expressed by the host. Their thoughts and opinions do not reflect those of iHeartRadio, Coast to Coast AM, opinions and others, or their sponsors and associates. We would like to encourage you to do your own research and discover the subject matter for yourself.
I am Joshua B. Warren, and each week on this show, I'll be bringing you brand mind-blowing content, news, exercises, and weird experiments we can do at home, and a lot more. On this edition of the show, keep this in your
I'm going
wallet to attract
to
money.
Clearfield.
Plus,
I'm gonna go this way
a
really quick.
ghost story.
We're in
This is
Brigham
something
City,
that I have
Utah.
been
Going to
meaning to talk
Clearfield,
about for a long
Utah.
time, but I wasn't quite ready. I don't think I have ever shared this story publicly that I'm going to tell you about here shortly. But first things first, I, for many, many years, have been keeping a little piece of paper, like a little sliver of paper in my wallet
Big.
with the number
What's
8
big?
drawn on it. And since I have done that, let me tell you, that wallet has
Mountains,
never
yeah.
been empty. It has always been full of cash. And some of you have probably heard about the power of number 8 in attracting wealth before. But I want to dig into it a little bit more with you because, you know, I'm recording this show right now. That's when a lot of people are finally starting to get financially caught up
You
after
love the
the
view.
holidays and winter time. Everybody blows way too much money around the holidays, and then in winter, things slow
Little
down a lot.
confused.
And imagine how you're going to get any money, and then all of a sudden a check shows up or an opportunity pops up that will allow you to make money. And when I say I have a number 8, the first time I did this, I got a little piece of paper that's probably like an inch by an inch, and I just took an ink pen and I just drew an 8 on it and put that in
High
my
school.
wallet. And then later on, when I realized how quickly my wallet kept filling up, I made a more permanent version. I laminated it, and I've kept at least one of those in my wallet, sure enough. And I can't remember where I first heard about the power of keeping the number 8 in a wallet. I know that Glennis McCants, the numbers lady, has talked about this on Coast to Coast AM a number of times. And of course, I even interviewed her back in the day on my show called Speaking of Strange. She's a very famous numerologist. In fact, her website is glennishasyournumber.com. GLYNIS McCants, MCCANTS, glennishasyournumber.com. She talks a lot about the power of number 8 to attract wealth. And I believe that right off the bat, it has to do with the fact that the number 8 is also used as the sign for infinity in many regards. We see it used as the infinity symbol in math. We see it used that way in a lot of technology. For example, if you use a camera, you'll often see its infinity sign there to allow you to focus properly. It's kind of interesting when you get online and you start reading about the number 8. It says here that the infinity symbol, described as a sideways figure 8, is unrelated to the digit 8 in origin. That it's first used in the mathematical meaning infinity in the 17th century and may be derived from the Roman numeral for 1000, which looks similar to this. So they're saying that officially that the usage of the number 8 as a counting tool should not be related to this symbol being used to represent infinity. But to me, I understand how there's a difference between literally counting using numbers and just the way that the number appears to you. But this goes back to my belief in the symbology in general of how pictures appear. That it may not have to do with the fact that 8 can only be used as a counting tool out of your 10 fingers here to keep track of something. That something about the way it's depicted also triggers this idea of infinity in the brain. In fact, if you're more interested in numerology type stuff, I did an episode of this podcast called Strange
Give me
Things.
one
Episode 182. It's called Can Numerology Make You Rich and Happy? Truth. So to me, regardless of the historic relationship
Pause
between
this for a
8 as a
second.
counting tool and 8 as a symbol for infinity, very simply capture the idea of money or anything flowing to you, and that is how you have to envision, just subconsciously, the idea of making money, of money flowing freely to you. Now, I do want to point out that there are similar things. For example, you may, of course, know about this tale of the mythical Ouroboros. This is an ancient symbol depicting a snake eating its own tail, and could also be a dragon eating its own tail. not quite the same thing as the infinity symbol, but it's still often used as some kind of a magical representation of the cycle of life and death and of energy flowing and transforming. And I did not realize this until I just started doing such as rat snakes that have been documented, yes, consuming themselves. And so I looked a little more deeply into that, and I don't want to see some. I started seeing pictures of this come up, and I was like, no, I don't want to see this. It says, while it's unusual, some rat snakes have been observed engaging in self-cannibalism, sometimes to the point of dying from it, though the reasons for this behavior are not fully understood. It's called autocannibalism, the act of an animal consuming its own body parts. And they say that at least one captive snake was documented trying to consume itself twice, dying in the second attempt. There was another snake in the wild that was discovered having swallowed 2/3 of its body. Snake experts, they think this might arise from stress, confusion, malady, hunger, but they really don't know. And so that's just a weird thing to think about. And it also reminds me of these stories that I heard when I was growing up about the hoop snake. That's part of, at least where I grew up, it was part of the Appalachian mountain folklore. And I've talked about this also before on the show, when I was talking about weirdo cryptids, that some old-timers say that you would occasionally be out in the mountains and you would discover a snake that would essentially put its tail in its mouth and lift itself up like a tire and come rolling down a hill at you like a big hula hoop. And at first you'd be confused, you didn't know what you were looking at, but then of course you were horrified when you saw the stripes or coloring and you realized this is a snake that just springs on you at the last moment. Now, is there any truth to that? I doubt it, but when I was growing up, there was this old man who was a friend of the family, and we're talking and that basically everybody was so terrified of him, they just killed him out, which is why you don't find them so much anymore. So just an interesting idea about the relationship between the Ouroboros and infinity. But let's get back to how all this might apply to you making money. Well, when we come back from our break, I'm going to share with you some of what I call a money miracle secret. It's going to help you understand why that the number 8 and your mentality about looking at money as an energy and having that represented in your wallet might help you attract more money as you move into your year and you start planning your vacations. You start, well, you know how it goes. There's always a new bill popping up for something. And if you want to go right now during the break and get my Money Miracle Secret ebook and audiobook for absolutely free, go to moneymiraclesecret.com. moneymiraclesecret.com, or you can just go to joshuapwarren.com and sign up for my free and spam-free e-newsletter right there on the homepage. Takes you 2 seconds, and either way, you'll receive an automated email from me that has the ebook, the audiobook, tones, all kinds of free online goodies that you will be able to access immediately to start making your life more magical. So like I say, either go directly to moneymiraclesecret.com or sign up at joshuapwarren.com, where I also have my curiosity shop. I am Joshua P. Warren, and you're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. And I will be right back.
see empty lots, you see blueprints. Where others sit in lecture halls, future leaders choose Ferris State University to build something real. Ready to dig in and learn through action? Ferris State gives you the tools, the team, and training to unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, students don't just study, they build, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu. Ferris State University. We build champions.
So you want to start a business. You might think you need a team of people and fancy tech skills, but you don't. You just need GoDaddy Aero. I'm Walton Goggins, and as an actor, I'm an expert at looking like I know what I'm doing, even when I don't. And I like the sound of starting my own business, Walton Goggins Goggle Glasses. But I'm an actor. I don't know what I'm doing. I needed help. GoDaddy Aero uses AI to create everything you need to grow a business. It'll make you a unique logo. It'll create a custom website. It'll write social posts for you and even set you up with a social media calendar. I didn't even realize I needed a social media calendar. GoDaddy Aero will take your idea that sounds good and make a business that looks like you know what you're doing. GoDaddy Aero can get your business up and running in minutes. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like a plan. Get started at GoDaddy.com/Aero. That's GoDaddy.com/AIRO.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/iHeart.
I'm trying to find quality brake service.
Look no further than Big O.
How about oil changes?
Big O.
Or new wheels?
Big O.
Struts?
Yep, Big O.
Alignments?
We do those too.
Shocks?
Big O.
Inspections?
Big O's the place.
Fluid changes?
Yep,
Batteries?
yep.
Even filter changes?
See.
And the best tires on the road?
Of course, Big O's got it. Get everything you need only at your locally owned Big O Tires.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish or satin, or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all in the app. Download today.
Welcome back to Strange Things yourself of this once in a while. In my free ebook called 5-Minute Money Miracle Secret, I wrote this. Give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. For this to work, you must read everything carefully and thoughtfully. And by the way, this is also an audiobook, so if you're visually impaired, it still works fine. The audiobook is there on the website. Money is not a physical thing. Money is an energy. The only way to attract more of it is to improve your personal relationship with that energy. Then, that energy can bring you things via money. Remember these 3 truths. Truth number 1 is money is not a physical thing. It is energy. Truth number 2 is to attract more money, you must improve your relationship with money energy. And truth number 3 is money comes from one place and one place only. Other people. I go on to say, before I explain the money secret, let me explain a bit more about the nature of money. Money is not inherently good or bad. It can provide light, keep you warm, cook your food. But too much used recklessly can burn and destroy an entire community. If for some reason you think that money is a bad thing, you must realize you are preventing it from flowing to you. Think about the good things you can do with money. Some believe money is, quote, all evil, citing a biblical quote, but that is a misquote. The actual quote is that love of money is the root of all evil. In other words, money is not evil, but people who glorify money for greedy purposes often perform evil, selfish deeds like robberies and murders. Money itself is neutral. It is people that decide whether or not to form a responsible, positive relationship with money, attracting it to help themselves and others. Author Arnold Patton said, quote, the sole purpose of money is to express appreciation, end quote. Indeed, that is truly what the purpose of money is meant to be. Remember. And so if you want the universe to send more money your way, what are you doing in your life for which the universe should express gratitude toward you? Think about that one more time. If you want the universe to send more money your way, what are you doing in your life for which the universe should express gratitude toward you? How much positivity and value can you bring into the world on a daily basis? The answer? Well, you might be surprised. I'll give you some ideas later. In order to start quickly attracting money, you must learn to transform your idea of money from just a pile of $100 bills and gold coins next to you would be worthless. I own an actual authentic $100 trillion bill. It was issued by the government of Zimbabwe in 2009. A trillion is a million millions. There are 12 zeros in a trillion. And yet the $100 trillion bill would barely cover the cost of a loaf of bread in Zimbabwe. Today, the bill is worthless, except to people like me who purchased them off eBay as a curiosity. Or maybe it really has even more value than ever. It's a powerful reminder for me about what true value, true money is, instead of the worthless things we use to merely symbolize it. We so easily focus on the wrong thing. You can't attract money until you know how to focus on real money. I'll get to that soon, I promise. You must also be realistic when asking yourself how much money you really need to be happy. It's okay to want money. We all need it to survive, but do you really need $1 million? In 2015, I published a book called Use the Force, A Jedi's Guide to the Law of Attraction. You should definitely add it to your book list. You can actually read it for free in multiple languages if you just go to joshuapwarren.com and click on the book cover. In the book, I recounted the sad story of an Illinois man who won a $20 million lottery in 1996. He was very generous with his money, lavishing gifts on his friends and loved ones. However, his sister-in-law and her boyfriend wanted more. They kidnapped him, initially with a ransom plan. However, things went awry, so they shot him in the head, killing him. These tragic stories are far too common among those who suddenly receive extraordinary amounts of money. It becomes a curse. All the problems the money is meant to solve can quickly transform into much more serious problems. That is another reason you should think very carefully about how much you really need to attain a reasonable amount of happiness and liberty. And now, let's move on to the technique that will allow abundance to start flowing your way quickly. That's all I'm going to read to you from this free ebook. And again, you can listen to it as well as a free audiobook, and then it comes with tones. Go right now. If you've already signed up for my free e-newsletter, then you should have received a copy of this. If you go to moneymiraclesecret.com and you sign up, just put your email address in there, you should receive an email to you. Or if you want to email me because you can't find your link or whatever, that's fine. You can find my email address also at joshuapwarren.com. This is why I think that maybe that infinity symbol is so important. Because if you really accept that money is the product of an energy, of relationships, then you will see by having something like a symbol for infinity so beautifully matches with that concept of this perpetual abundance flowing to you, that it's also a give and take relationship, that you are putting out something of value that creates the reaction and sends things of value back to you. It's that symbiotic relationship between you and how the society works. And to some extent, that's always how it works. Even among the animals of the forest, it's always give and take. And when you think about the idea that everything exists within some realm of flowing energy, and sometimes it's invisible to us, our senses just can't grasp it. And sometimes there are tools that allow us to catch glimpses of it. This kind of thinking, opening our minds, takes us closer and closer to actually being able to look into and document this so-called spirit realm. And I conducted some ghost investigations. I guess the first one was about 6 years ago, and then I conducted the second one about 4 years ago here in Las Vegas at a location that I don't think I've ever really talked about. I did something I had never done before, and that's saying a lot for me. And as you know, I am working on an experiment right now to try to open a portal here in Nevada. And so I figured before I move on to telling you how that's going, let me just tell you about this other experiment that I did to try to see if I could actually capture definitive scientific proof of a ghost once and for all. And ask yourself, have to be for you. If you don't believe in ghosts, what would you need to see as evidence to prove to you that ghosts and spirits are real? Think about that during the break. I'm Joshua. You're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast and Paranormal Podcast Network. And I'll be back after these important messages.
You see the world differently, where others see empty lots. Where others sit in lecture halls, future leaders choose Ferris State University to build something real. Ready to dig in and learn through action? Ferris State gives you the tools, the team, and training to unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu. Ferris State University. We build champions.
So you want to start a business? You might think you need some people with fancy tech skills, but no. You just need GoDaddy Arrow. I'm Walton Goggins, an actor, an expert, and I know what I'm doing. I need help. And I like the sound of starting my own business, Walton Goggins Goggins. But I'm an actor. I need help. GoDaddy Arrow uses AI to create everything. It makes it look local.
all in the end. Download today.
Welcome back to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast Media Paranormal Podcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua P. Warren, and this is the show where the unusual becomes usual. Speaking of strange, boys, my allergies started bothering me, even out here in
I have a
Asheville.
mosquito crawling on my windshield.
It was pretty bad though, growing up in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, and a number of other books. But when I was in my early 20s, I investigated a house in Asheville where the young lady who lived there had been seeing someone during the night. And one day I was in the attic of this house with another researcher named Rob. And Rob said, Josh, look, I've been getting all kinds of strange electromagnetic and electrostatic fluctuations. But when I turned, there was this kind of blue-gray misty form about the size of maybe a softball, sort of hovering right there in the air. And I was just dumbfounded. He was looking at it from one point of view, I was looking at it from another. I took a photograph of the picture. It wasn't in its fullest form because, like I say, I was mesmerized, but I got a picture of this thing. And I was so excited, but afterward I was frustrated because I thought, even though I have a picture of this thing, that doesn't really prove that ghosts are real, because I don't have a ghost trap like the Ghostbusters that I can suck the ghost into and release it later into a jar in a museum. And you take a picture of something and people will say, well, this could be an optical illusion, it could be this or that. And so I really thought a lot about what is the best we can do to try to capture evidence that this is a real phenomenon. Both Rob and I were seeing the same thing from two different points of view. We both touched it. I photographed it, and it's like, what else do you have to do? And then a few years after that, I was at the Haunted Row Park Inn in Asheville with my team, and our visual and photographic specialist, Brian Irish, was with me. We were in the Palm Court, an area haunted often by the Pink Lady, among other apparitions. And Brian and I were standing side by side, and we each had digital cameras. And I can't remember if we coordinated this or if it just happened accidentally, but I took a picture looking in one direction, and he took a picture looking in the same direction about 1 second after I did. So we had two pictures of this same area made with two different cameras from two slightly different points of view. And when we looked at our pictures, we had both captured a big glowing orb-like anomaly there. And to me, it seemed like this was kind of almost like a 3D picture of a ghost, because reflections and glares and things like that are not usually, they don't usually look the same way from different angles. And by looking at something from two different angles, you're able to tell a lot about its physical features, how big it is in relationship to other things, how high it is up in the you could really, it seems, prove that you had something there. It reminds you of, the technology like they use in the Matrix movies, when the character jumps up in the air, the character stands still, but the camera sweeps around 360 degrees. That's what it would be like. If you could get a ring of cameras, and you could have a ghost appear in the middle of that ring, and it got captured on all the cameras, then you could construct something out of that. It was basically almost incontestable proof that you captured something that was there in that external environment. That may be the holy grail of ghost hunting, other than some form of reliable communication. So for years, I've been looking at places where I have the highest chances of setting up an experiment where I have literally, like I said,
I was
6 to
trying
7
to kill a
cameras.
mosquito.
They're all centered on one controlled space that's supposed to be haunted. And in the middle of that space, I have a variety of scientific tools. So that if we do capture something on all the cameras, and the tools are triggering at the same time, picking up electromagnetic fields, electrostatic fields, vibrations, temperature anomalies, etc., then you could put all that together and you could basically say, look, this is proof of ghosts. That whatever a ghost is, this is a real manifestation. So I've been on the search for a long time for a place that I thought would give me high chances of that, and I finally learned about this old rundown motel here in Las Vegas called the Oasis Motel. This motel apparently was built back in the early 1950s, making it a real anomaly around here because they tear stuff down here and rebuild and make new stuff, left and right. It is an old rundown property. I don't even know how much longer it's going to continue being there. I'm surprised it's still there. The address is 1731 South Las Vegas Boulevard, number 131, the Oasis Motel. And I started hearing after I moved to Las Vegas, there was a very prominent ghost in one of the rooms. An actor had killed himself. The actor's name was David Strickland. He was born in 1969 and he died in 1999. And he was best known for playing the role of reporter on the NBC sitcom Suddenly Susan. I'm sure some of you remember that. It starred Brooke Shields. And he apparently was doing very well for himself. I mean, he'd been on, he'd guest starred on shows like Roseanne, Mad About You. I mean, it seemed like he was doing very well, but they say that he suffered from a bipolar disorder, and he had long and troubled history of drug and alcohol abuse. 5 months before he died, he was arrested for cocaine possession, that kind of thing. Was sort of, in and out of rehab. And so on March 22nd, 1999, he was found dead, age 29. They say that it all began on March 20th. David Strickland and the comedian Andy Dick flew from Los Angeles to Las Vegas and spent 3 nights partying in strip clubs. After checking into a motel, he spent time with, they say a prostitute, consumed 6 bottles of beer, and then hanged himself with a bed sheet over the ceiling beam. So they found him there the next morning. His body was discovered by a private investigator hired by Brooke Shields. And so, very, very tragic. As a matter of fact, a lot of, speaking of Andy Dick, I won't get into it, but, he's had a lot of bad luck, it seems like, in his life as well. So I started looking into it, and I believe I found that even Zach Bagans had once gone there.
Give me a second.
And started researching this room because everybody said he committed suicide in room number 20. Room number 20. Well, I went over there one day And you never know what kind of a reaction you're going to get from people at the front desk. So I had to be kind of careful about how I approached this. I walked into the office. It was one of those offices where the employees are behind a bulletproof glass. And I started inquiring about specifically renting room number 20. And she looks at me and says, "Are you a ghost hunter?"
Back.
And I said, "Oh, well, I would never admit to that, you know." And she goes, "That's okay." She said, "You know, the boss doesn't like talking about that sort of thing." But she says, "Yeah, we have reports all the time from number 20. And she said, "But we probably have even more from room number 6. She said, "Room number 6 is so haunted. There's some kind of a ghost of a woman in there, and she throws objects around like a poltergeist. It's so haunted," she said, "they can't even get housekeeping to go in there and clean room number 6. They got to pull teeth. They have to pay extra money. They have to convince them to go into room number 6. So I was like, well, I was going to come here and set up my rig in room number 20, but maybe I'll start with room number 6.
I will be
So
back.
sure enough, I spent a lot of money and bought a whole brand new rig. I think it was 7 cameras. I even refreshed the latest new equipment, and I was able to rent room number 6. Went over there in the afternoon, set up everything in a big ring focused on the bed in the middle where all the instruments were.
Parasites
And I
in here,
left
please say
everything
hello.
recording. And I
I'll be
came
back.
back about 12 hours later, which was as long as I could record at that time. When we return, I'll tell you what my results were. And then also, I think I have a story to share with you, another ghost story from Asheville about a woman who says, "Be careful what you wish for." I'm Joshua P. Warren. You're listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I'll be right back.
You see the world differently. Where others see empty lots, you see blueprints. Where others sit in lecture halls, future leaders choose Ferris State University to build something real. Ready to dig in and learn through action? Ferris State gives you the tools, the team, and training to unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, students don't just study, they build, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu. Ferris State University. We build champions.
So you want to start a business. You might think you need a team of people and fancy tech skills, but you don't. You just need GoDaddy Aero. I'm Walton Goggins, and as an actor, I'm an expert in looking like I know what I'm doing, even when I don't. And I like the sound of starting my own business, Walton Goggins Goggle Glass. But I'm an actor. I don't know what I'm doing. I needed help. GoDaddy Aero uses AI to create everything you need to grow a business. It'll make you a unique logo. It'll create a custom website. It'll write social posts for you and even set you up with a social media calendar. I didn't even realize I needed a social media calendar. GoDaddy Aero will take your idea that sounds good and make a business that looks like you know what you're doing. GoDaddy Aero can get your business up and running in minutes. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like a plan. Get started at GoDaddy.com/Aero. That's GoDaddy.com/AIRO.
I'm trying to find quality brake service.
Look no further than Big O.
How about oil changes?
Big O.
Or new wheels?
Big O.
Struts?
Yep, Big O.
Alignments?
We do those too.
Shocks?
Big O.
Inspections?
Big O's the place.
Fluid changes?
Yep,
Batteries?
yep.
Even filter changes?
See,
And the best tires on the road?
of course, Big O's got 'em. Get everything you need only at your locally owned Big O Tires.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish or satin, or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews all in the app. Download today.
For period protection you can put on and forget about, nothing beats Knix leak-proof underwear. North America's #1 leak-proof underwear brand. Let's face it, life can be unpredictable, but your leak-proof underwear shouldn't be. That's why millions of people choose Knix. For periods, for light leaks, for everyday freshness. Knix undies are super comfy, super absorbent, and made to handle whatever your day throws at you. Day 2 of your period? Covered. Your daily run? No problem. That big sneeze? You know the one. Yep, we've got you. And with styles like bikinis, boy shorts, thongs, and high-rise, plus sizes from extra small to 4XL, Knix makes it easy to find your perfect fit. Say goodbye to stress and leaks, and say hello to undies that work just as hard as you do, no matter the leak. Find the style and level of protection you want at Knix.com and use code FLOW15 for 15% off. That's KNIX.com, code FLOW15 for 15% off. Knix, for your leaks, for your life.
Welcome back to the final segment of this edition of Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. I am your host, Joshua P. Warren. So I got room 6 and I set up every camera, I don't even remember how many cameras I put. This was 2019 and I had full spectrum cameras. I had cameras shooting into the infrared, night vision, UV. They were all electronic. I did not have like a film motion picture camera, even though I have used those in the past. I stuffed cameras all over that room from every angle you can possibly conceive of, all focused on the middle of the room. I had a big needle there with a lightweight piece of paper shaped like a pyramid balanced on top of it so I could see if there were air currents that were flowing. Right in the middle was an instrument pack, a number of instrument packs that could pick up a wide variety of electromagnetic frequencies, electrostatic charges, vibrations, temperature fluctuations. I mean, I had audio recorders. I'm telling you, this was like my ultimate attempt at setting all this stuff up focused on this one area. I thought if something appears in the middle of this room and it's documented on all of these cameras and the equipment's responding, like, this is going to make history. So I left it there, again, probably at least 12 hours. Went, picked everything up. So this is going to take a long time to analyze it. Brought everything back to my office, and I started going through the process of looking at each and every one. And I didn't get anything. There were times when I would see some electromagnetic flux, but that could just be because an airplane flew over or something, because I was using very sensitive equipment. There are times where I would hear a little noise like a bump or a crack or something, and occasionally it would coincide with the EMF, but still it wasn't like I heard a voice or anything. It was a lot of work. It was very disappointing. So I went back 2 years later, and I had bought even more sophisticated equipment. And this time I said, all right, I'm going to do it in room number 20 where David Strickland committed suicide. It was so eerie. It was a cold winter day. Very, very dry air, where you could hear that static electricity crackling. Go into this little shabby room, and there was the beam where he had, from which he had hanged himself, and it almost made me sick, to be honest with you, just the feeling of depression in that room. So I set up all of my gear and did the same thing. Went and picked it up, sat down, took me a couple days to analyze it, and again, I didn't really get anything. Now, like I say, there were some times where, yes, there were some weird noises, some weird electromagnetic flux, but I'm looking for something very, very tangible and very solid at this point in my ghost hunting career. And I don't go doing a lot of ghost investigations. But I didn't get anything on those investigations. And I know you're sitting there thinking like, well, that's a bummer story, Josh. Why did you tell us that? Well, here's why. I believe that it's still possible for one of you out there to use this approach to make history. If now that I put this idea in your head, here's how you have to do this. And it's certainly possible that a lot of these ghosts cannot even be photographed with current technology, that we do not have the ability to do that visually. You know, Nikola Tesla he basically invented X-rays. He didn't get the credit for it, but a guy named Röntgen, who studied Tesla's work, got the credit for it. But Tesla figured out how to capture images of people's bones inside their body. He called them shadowgraphs, and it was like, how did this guy do that? I know that there are things that cannot be captured with current technology, but I also know there are things that can be, because I bet you if I had that same setup in that attic with that mist appeared, that would have done it. That would have been the proof we're looking for, at least for most people. And I would have been able to turn all of it over to analysts and have them examine it skeptically and all that sort of thing. But I am still going to attempt this from time to time, but I was being very secretive about it because I wanted, frankly, to get the credit for being the first person to capture a ghost this way. But at this point, I don't even care about being the first person. I just want, I care about the research. I want to know that we can prove that the ghosts are there. Let's get past that blockage so that we can start working more on how these work in society, what these things are. I have a message from a woman in Asheville, Sarah Harrison, telling me about an event that happened to her there in Asheville in 2009. Of course, one of the most haunted places in Asheville is Helen's Bridge. And the story is, whether it's true or not, that a woman named Helen hanged herself on that bridge sometime in the late 1800s or early 1900s, and that she haunts that area as well as the nearby castle called Salego. They say she did it because she was distraught over the death of her daughter. Whether or not that is true, I didn't know about that in Asheville. We have discovered that there were a lot of other deaths associated with the castle, including the death of a man who committed suicide on that bridge. He was murdered. Here's my shoe. This tale is one that teaches the lesson: be careful when you're Asheville, especially when you want to visit you from an otherworldly realm. I'm the leader of a paranormal group in Asheville, North Carolina. The members of the Hickory, North Carolina group were visited and wished to see a local infamous haunt in Helen's Bridge. We drove up Bowcatcher Mountain in 2 cars, my team one, the Hickory group in the other. The leader of the Hickory group had brought along his teenage brother. And as we were exploring Helen's Bridge, the younger brother ran up and down the bridge yelling, "Helen, come forth," over and over. After a while, we decided to head down the mountain for spirits of another kind. I drove my car down first with the other car following. The people in my car saw nothing out of the ordinary. As we reached the bottom, the other car pulled over. Everyone in the second car was shaking and pale. The kid brother was wide-eyed and speechless for the first time that night. The story they told was chilling. As they were driving down the mountain, a woman came out of the woods. She had on a long dress and had long hair. But the worst part was her face. It was contorted and hideous, like something out of a horror movie. It was too grotesque to be a human being. And they left swearing never to visit Helen's Bridge again. I've returned to Helen's Bridge many times since that night. I've wondered if Helen was there, floating just out of reach of my senses. I do know that I will never again made a beeline for the door. Why do people say they make a beeline when they mean they're running in a straight line? Because we think that they will say, well, I am, you think a beeline would be in the shape of a bee, maybe kind of like the figure 8. Turns out, from what I've read, it's called a beeline because it's not named after the letter B, it's named after the insect, bee. And apparently, bees are so effective and productive that they always are able to take the most straight and direct path right back to the hive. And that, my friends, is why they say we call that straight dash back to a place a beeline. All right, you know what time it is. If you can, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Let's all meditate on making next week the best week ever for you and everybody else listening. Here it is, the one, the only, the original, the world famous Good Fortune Cone. That's it for this edition of the show. Follow me at Joshua P. Warren. Plus, visit joshuapwarren.com to sign up for my free e-newsletter to receive a free instant gift and check out the cool stuff in the Curiosity Shop, all at joshuapwarren.com. I have a fun one lined up for you next time, I promise. So please tell all your friends to subscribe to this show and to always remember the golden rule. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you for staying curious. And I will talk to you again soon. You've been listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network.
If you like this episode of Strange Things, wait till you hear the next one. Thank you for listening to the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network.
You see the world differently. Where others see empty lots, you see blueprints. Where others sit in lecture halls, future leaders choose Ferris State University to build something real. Ready to dig in and learn through action? Ferris State gives you the tools, the team, and training to unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, students don't just study, they build, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu. Ferris State University. We build champions.
Add dry eye relief to your routine with Refresh Opti Omega 3, a lubricating eye drop with a moisture-rich, preservative-free formula, enhanced with inactive ingredients like flaxseed oil and antioxidants. This formula supports all 3 tear film layers and provides advanced hydration to instantly moisturize and soothe dry eyes. Refresh Opti Omega 3 is safe to use as often as needed, so you can make part of your wellness routine. Find Refresh online or in the eye drop section at all major retailers. FSA and HSA eligible.
Now, you can watch the best of Hulu on Disney Plus. The hottest Hulu shows and movies right next to your Disney Plus favorites. With Hulu on Disney Plus, dive into new seasons of The Handmaid's Tale, 9 Perfect Strangers, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and Welcome to Wrexham. And don't miss Star Wars Andor Season 2 and Marvel's Daredevil Born starting at $10.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit DisneyPlus.com/Hulu for details.
I'm trying to find quality brake service.
Look no further than Big O.
How about oil changes?
Big O.
Or new wheels?
Big O.
Struts?
Yep, Big O.
Alignments?
We do those too.
Shocks?
Big O.
Inspections?
Big O's the place.
Fluid changes?
Yep.
Batteries?
Yep.
Even filter changes?
See.
And the best tires on the road?
Of course, Big O's got it. Get everything you need only at your locally owned Big O Tires.
Do you own a business that's ready to thrive? It's time to let Intuit QuickBooks take things like unpaid invoices and tracking expenses off your plate so you can take things to the next level. Intuit QuickBooks is an all-in-one business platform that can help with those day-to-day tasks like invoicing and expenses. Manage and grow your business all in one place. Intuit QuickBooks, your way to money. Money movement services are provided by Intuit Payments Inc., licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services.
This is an iHeart podcast. This is an iHeart podcast.
You see the world differently. Where others see empty lots, you see blueprints. Where others sit in lecture halls, future leaders choose Ferris State University to build something real. Ready to dig in and learn through action? Ferris State gives you the tools, the team, and training to unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, students don't just study, they build, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu. Ferris State University. We build champions.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play in the store, play at home, play where you're bored. Play today for your chance to win. Get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience such gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now and play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Sligo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. You have a long list of things to deal with. Check dry eye symptoms off with Refresh Reliever PF Extra and Eye Drops, offering an advanced formula to soothe and hydrate your dry eyes. Refresh Reliever PF Extra includes moisture locking technology that prevents further irritation and gives you lasting relief. You deserve relief from your dry eye symptoms, and your eyes deserve extra. Find Refresh online or in the eye drop section at all major retailers. FSA and HSA eligible.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the number one most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, keep an eye on what your kids are spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/iHeart.
This is Jenny Garth from Diamond to Our Emoji. Aging is a natural process as we get older. And we, at the Deep Dive, we reason. But I will tell you one thing about aging when we don't get older. It's the symptoms that stem from changing hormones, especially as you get closer to perimenopause and menopause. That's why, listeners, I'm going to tell you about Happy Mammals Hormone Clinic. It's all over social media. Happy Mammal, the company that created Hormone Harmony, uses science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. Hormone Harmony is perfect for those menopause symptoms that put a woman's life on hold. Hot flashes, night sweats, racing thoughts, low mood, poor sleep, gas, no desire to be in bed next to someone. If you're yeah,
decided to talk about this now. As you may or may not know, I was born and raised in the Blue Ridge Mountains of western North Carolina. It seemed like there was a church on almost every corner. I think I can say I was born on the buckle of the Bible Belt, and I say that confidently because the Reverend Billy Graham was also born and raised there and had his ministry there. And he is arguably, or he's passed on now, but he was arguably the most influential Christian minister of the 20th century. He was known as the pastor to presidents because he was the spiritual counsel to 13 U.S. presidents, starting with Harry S. Truman, even President Donald Trump. And of course, his son Franklin carries on the tradition. So, growing up in the Southern Baptist tradition, as I did, I was very familiar with the Old Testament, the New Testament. It was kind of interesting as I got older and I started meeting friends from different places who had different religions. I would get invited to go to a different type of church and check out the scene. Here's a Pentecostal church, or here's an Episcopal church. I ended up dating a girl for a while who was Catholic. That was always interesting to go to the Catholic church. The Catholic church is kind of exciting because it always reminds me of sort of like a Marvel universe with all of these intense characters, these villains and heroes, and the buildings are big and dramatic, and sometimes there are body parts on display, and there are all these magical powers you can talk about, and you have holy water so you can fight vampires and werewolves. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the Catholic Church definitely is a very special institution. As I was trying to figure out what I wanted to believe personally, I was exploring, I was open-minded, I was exploring different concepts and mindsets. I ended up buying this book. I actually have a copy of it in my hands right now. I think this was originally published in 1860 by a man named William Henry Burr. It's called Self-Contradictions of the Bible. And this is almost 100 pages of just verse after verse after verse, with one verse contradicting another in some form or fashion. And so some of the more obvious ones that a lot of people have probably heard about, I mean, if you go back and you just start look at the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, the creation of things. Genesis 1 describes a 6-day creation, and created simultaneously after animals. Genesis 2 presents a different order: man first, animals, and then finally women, or woman. Next, we have the order of creation. Genesis 1 states that light was created on the first day, while the sun, moon, and stars were not created until the 4th day. Creation of animals. Genesis 1 says fowl were created from the waters, while Genesis 2 says they were formed from the ground. There are other parts of the Old Testament you might give that a pass, but well, come on, we're talking the beginning of creation, and nobody's going to get that right. There are sections in this book where it says, okay, for example, God forbids human sacrifice. And it gives these verses about that, and then it turns right around and says God accepts human sacrifices, and gives verses about that. Or you get up here into the New Testament, and it says, Christ, he taught non-resistance, says, resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. He also said, all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. If little book, kind of a pocket-sized book, also about 100 pages long. It's called Scientific Facts in the Bible. 100 Reasons to Believe the Bible is Supernatural in Origin. Well, what an interesting subtitle. 100 Reasons to Believe the Bible is Supernatural in Origin. It's written by a man named Ray Comfort. The book was only $8.99. And so I started reading this on the airplane. And I thought that this guy makes some very interesting points. And I want to share some of these points with you and see what you think about it. And he says, I hope you are skeptical. Suppose I believed that I was God and that I thought the whole universe was big. He was a little taken aback, but I wasn't impressed, laughed at in 100 years. What then can we be sure of? Is there such a thing as an absolute unchanging truth? We will look at this subject in this publication. We're coming up on a break. I think you can see already why that I find this interesting. Because he is right that we tend to think in absolutes and we put all this emphasis on science and technology, and yet it's constantly changing. And if you went back 100 years, which is not that long ago, Dick Van Dyke was done. You go back 100 years and you tell them what the world's like today, a lot of scientists would say that it's impossible. You're out of your mind. Okay, we're going to get into some specifics though. What are supposedly some specific examples of scientific facts in the Bible that might make us believe the Bible is supernatural in origin? Pretty profound concept. Hey, if you like this kind of thing, it's a free show. Support it. I probably have some brand new stuff in my curiosity shop that you've never seen. Go check it out. At least look at it. Go to joshuapwarren.com and click the link there to the curiosity shop at the top. Also, on the homepage, be sure to sign up for my free and spam-free e-newsletter. It takes you 2 seconds. Put your email address in there. Hit submit. Instantly automated email. Well, you'll get some free online goodies. Start making your life more magical. I am Joshua P. Warren, and you are listening to Strange Things on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Marvel Podcast Network. And I will be right back.
You see the world differently. Where others see empty lots, you see blueprints. Where others sit in lecture halls, future leaders choose Ferris State University to build something real. Ready to dig in and learn through action? Ferris State gives you the tools, the team, and training to unleash your potential with paths to high-demand careers and in-state tuition for non-residents. At Ferris State, students don't just study, they build, they lead, they succeed. Visit ferris.edu.
Listening to is